Ground control to Major Tom. Oh, by the way, this has been a
Commencing countdown, engines on.
Well, this has been this is catching up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
And we've got another interview, this time with Meredith Gran, creator of Octopus Pie. Octopus Pie started out as a webcomic, self-published by Meredith. She's been doing it since 2007.
Yeah.
Woo! That's fucking incredible. That's
awesome.
And it's never wavered. It's only become more timely.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically about these kids going through their 20s in Brooklyn, and all the accoutrement.
I meant to ask before we got on mic, was Volume 1 what's being released? Is that like the first couple issues that came out? Because I've never, unfortunately, terrible interviewer here. I didn't go to her website. I just read the book.
But yeah, I mean, it's like the first 11 chapters.
Okay, because that's amazing. No, like once you said that she had been doing this for 10 years, I was like, it doesn't feel like this is dated by 10 years, And so kudos to that too.
Yeah, think about
it being kind of timeless, because I lived in New York like 4 years ago, and it was like, just as fresh. Like I was like, I could totally believe all of this happening. Maybe like the stuff that was going on was happening in Williamsburg, and then when I was there, it was happening in Bushwick because it spreads. But like it felt like I was like, yeah, this is exactly.
And now it's in Astoria.
Yeah. Oh, fuck Astoria. Oh, I wish I could have just like had an interview with her where we just talk about the different boroughs and the different neighborhoods.
Yeah. You know what neighborhood sucks?
Astoria.
That'll be the new segment with Chris Nolan. You know what borough sucks?
Not borough, because then you'd only have 5
it's Staten
segments.
Island, and it sucks.
Then you just move on to Jersey City and stuff.
Yeah. Jersey City sucks.
Yeah.
I said it. My friend Sarah and Mary used to live there. And I
right.
hated going to visit them.
Yeah, now they're in Bushwick. Now they're, yeah.
Well, one's in Hell's Kitchen, and the other one's living where I was in Bushwick.
Right.
Yeah. Both places nice.
Yeah. And I think that really speaks to it, because imagine where we were when Meredith started, publishing Octopus Pie. Like in 2007, I was still in college. I think we all were still in college.
Yeah. I hadn't even started real college yet. I was still just goofing around, quote unquote, goofing around at community college.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 2009 that I really hunkered down and started, actually going towards a degree.
Yeah. But, the fucking stock market hadn't crashed yet.
Yeah. We still all had affordable housing.
Yeah. Man,
Mm-hmm.
those were the days. But anyway, without much
Go
further
see The
ado.
Big Short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite film of the year. Without much further ado, here's our interview.
You?
No, it's not with that. It's with Meredith. Meredith Gran. And joining us today, we've got Meredith Gran, the creator of Octopus Pie. The first volume of Octopus Pie gets its first volume published through Image Comics on Wednesday, February 17th. Available in bookstores, comic shops, and on Comixology everywhere. Meredith, thanks for joining us.
All right. Nice to be here.
So, you've been doing Octopus Pie since 2007. Obviously, you've got the 10th anniversary next year. How do you keep it? How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep the strip running on a such a regular basis for this long?
Well, I mean, I've always been writing about youth, and I guess the period in life that the characters are going through has sort of reflected what I've been going through. So mainly, I've just allowed the nature of that to change. When I get older, I age the characters a little bit and try to take them with me, so that what I'm writing about is not just a rehashing of what I was writing about a couple of years back.
Sure. And I think the biggest personal growth we see is in the leads, Eve and Hannah. I mean, in this volume, and I think you mentioned as much in the foreword, Eve definitely kind of has that kind of cynicism, I guess, from just being a 20-something working in retail, which is always a bit of a bummer.
Oh yeah.
And then Hannah's kind of, at least when we see her, and this is a bit of a shot in the dark, Hannah in this first volume really reminds me of Dee Dee from Dexter's Laboratory.
Yeah, I kind of think so too. I'm not sure that was a conscious decision, but in hindsight, yeah, there's similarities.
But we see them, even now, it almost feels like their worldview is kind of switched.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Eve is much more happy unless she's stuck on the Wonder Wheel in Coney Island. Whereas
right.
Yeah.
Right. Her insecurities have shifted maybe a little bit, but she's definitely a more happy person now.
Would you say a lot of that kind of comes from, because would you say you base Eve more off yourself than Hannah?
It varies. I mean, I'm all of them at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, probably more Eve than Hannah.
Sure. Now, one of the big things I've also noticed is from issue 46 on, you've started colorizing the comics. And for years they had just run black and white like this volume. How did that all kind of come about?
It was kind of the only thing I hadn't done. For years I've been trying to change the media I work in. I started out digital, and at some point I was like, well, I'm doing a webcomic, so this is a perfect opportunity to try new things. So I switched to inking on paper with a brush, which was something I'd sort of been timidly avoiding for years. And that worked out okay, even though, it looked terrible at first. I had all that time on my hands to figure out how to do it for real. So at some point I was like, well, I've done pretty much everything I've wanted to do in terms of black and white media, and I like where I'm going with the layouts and everything. And the only place I haven't really tried to push it yet is the color. And I've learned pretty quickly that it really enhances it gives me another tool to tell a story with. So it was kind of an experiment to give that a try, but I definitely wouldn't go back at this point. I think it's become a really important component to the comic.
Do you ever kind of see yourself pulling like a George Lucas special edition and remastering the first 45?
Remastering. There's going to be a few not recolor, but colorized, I guess, pages in the 4th volume that have never seen color. But for the most part, I like to keep in black and white. I think, they were designed to look a certain way, and I don't think it would necessarily enhance them to add that color as an afterthought.
Now, the entire book largely takes place in Brooklyn. I mean, the first volume kind of ends with this love letter to Dumbo and all that. But at the very much, there's kind of like this angst. There's kind of like very much from living in New York, you get the angst, the love of living in New York and the angst of living in New York. Have you spent your entire life kind of living in the New York area?
I did leave for a few years, but for the most part, it's been my whole life. I grew up outside of the city, and I went to school there, and I've lived in the city collectively probably like close to a decade. I'm sorry, what was the question here?
Well, just more or less like how, have you lived in the city the entire time? What's kind of your view on the city?
Yeah, I mean, I left for a little bit because it is kind of a heartbreaking place to live. You're just constantly frustrated with so many things about it, and I thought I could do better elsewhere, in a quieter place. And for a little while, maybe that was nice, but ultimately I really wanted to go back.
As someone who has also lived in New York, I can totally agree with what you're saying. I was only there for a couple years, but most of it was spent in Bushwick. So like most of this comic, I was just like, I know exactly what she's talking about.
Oh yeah, and Bushwick is like one of the rapidly growing and price increasing areas right now. So if you have any sort of attachment to it, you're going to see like 5 different Bushwicks in the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, I got out of there right as
East
the landlords.
Williamsburg?
Yeah, right as the landlords were like, wait a second. These hipsters really love Williamsburg, but they can't afford it, and they're moving here. I can jack up the price a little bit.
Yeah, just rebrand it a little bit, and you can charge way more.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've got family that lives in Park Slope, and that's like central, like now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they've got like South Slope now, which is like Sunset Park is turned into that, and it's just creeping farther and farther south.
Yeah, as a kid, there was like, because I would visit my family in Brooklyn, and unless you had family in Brooklyn, it's like, why would you ever, like in the 90s, why would you ever go to Brooklyn? And now it's like hipper than parts of Manhattan.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can stay out of Manhattan for weeks at a time and be pretty happy doing that.
I have to ask, because one of the episodes you've mentioned, the title of the episode's mentioned Starman, and it's kind of something that's been very much on our minds. We'll be mentioning it, kind of on our own in the episode. But how do you feel about David Bowie, one of the most famous New Yorkers in recent times?
Oh, I mean, I love him. I was so sad. I mean, everyone was sad about this. I don't feel like I have a unique perspective in that regard, but I love Bowie. I've mentioned him a few times in the comic over the years, and yeah, he's my favorite.
It was such a Do you have a favorite like album or period of Bowie's? Stardust, the Duke.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super boringly into Ziggy Stardust.
Nothing wrong with
like
that.
How typical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to.
Yeah, I know, right?
I want to meet the guy whose favorite era is like Tin Machine. Like that's somewhere out there.
Statistically speaking.
there's that one guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, yeah.
And you know what? That's fine. It's still better than like a million other things. So
Yeah.
One of the things I liked, like we were just talking about, Starman, just as a reference, or just the song itself. I feel like since his passing, we were talking about this off mic. That song in particular speaks volumes now. Like it's kind of really sad, but also wonderful at the same time about this idea of this alien coming through the airwaves, through the FM radio to inspire hope to the youth of today through music and inspire people and like reading this book that comes across there too. That idea of kind of these young kids in New York trying to find their way, and this idea that now that Bowie has quote unquote kind of left the earth, to sound like back to outer space, that just that song in general, and it was kind of amazing to see how everybody came together when he died. Like it was insane the amount of like using like tweets as I guess news currency or whatever, but like 4 million people in a matter of hours were like this outpouring for him. It was kind of amazing.
#1 album for Black Star.
Yeah, right. And that album packs a punch now too because of
wow, it's super good. Yeah, it makes me think about life beyond the grave. It makes me like both depressed and super hopeful at the same time.
Yeah, what I kind of take away from Black Star, and we'll talk about Octopus Pie again in a second. I swear to God.
It's okay. I like this.
The Black Star is him very much looking death in the face.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the music video for Lazarus, where he's literally lying on his deathbed with his arms outstretched.
That gives me goosebumps right now thinking about it. Because
Yeah.
I remember, the first time I saw it was obviously he was still alive. I had no idea about what was happening. None of us really did. The severity of his disease.
Oh, well, I had always heard that he was, like, at the beginning of the year, and Chris I think, was around for that. I was like, oh, shit, Bowie's back in the studio.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And then, like...
he's going to go on tour again.
Yeah.
Well, I always kind of... Because he said he was done with touring after The Next Day came out, and I was like, all right, fine. You're, like, in your 60s. It's cool. I understand.
Yeah.
Not everybody
Fair
can
enough.
be McCartney.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's very much like him, like, staring death in the face. Like, you listen to that song, like, saying, not quite yet.
It's kind of like the
have
most
to say
badass
goodbye.
artistic
and
statement.
I mean that's the most inspiring thing about him in general is that he was still making art his whole life and not just making the same thing but really searching for something new. And it felt like when the next day came out, it felt like he'd actually built up a new cachet of things that he had to say. And with Black Star, the thing he's talking about is his own mortality, and that's it comes from that same place that all of his best music came from, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I think spiritually it's a lot closer to Station too, where he's like in the inlet. If you have like the vinyl or I guess the CD version, he's literally drawing the Kabbalah tree of life, and you look at the Lazarus video, the version of Bowie that comes out of like the cupboard, like I guess like Narnia style.
Narnia
is Station to Station like Duke Bowie.
Yeah, that he could always recall these characters, and that he was so willing to give like one last gift before he left. Like this last statement. It's kind of amazing.
It was very reminiscent of Johnny Cash's final album because it had a very similar. He put out an album, put out a music video, and then like within just a short time, so I forget exactly how long it was, but a very short time span, he had passed away. And then you look back at the album and you're like, oh, he totally knew he was about to go.
Now,
there's an interaction with the audience going on there that's really, it's inspiring.
Yeah.
Now, I have to ask this. I'm sure you've heard this question like millions of times in the 9 years you've been doing Octopus Pie. Why call it Octopus Pie?
It's just a nonsense name. My friend John Ellison was trying to help me when I was just like out of school thinking about what I wanted to do with my web presence. Back when people made websites, I was just like, I want to put maybe like some shitty animation. Can I say that? I'm sorry.
No,
You
yeah.
can say whatever you want.
All right, fuck yeah. Well, I was just, I went to school for animation, and I wanted to do a website that was sort of a mishmash of animations. Like my idea before GIFs was even like an internet thing. Yeah, I basically invented this. I wanted to do like just stupid little short looping animations.
Well, thank you, Meredith.
Yeah.
Geek Out
No
Geek Out
problem.
Show exclusive.
Yeah, exclusive.
Yeah.
We have the inventor of the GIF.
And you're the first guys to hear this too. So
Ooh.
I just wanted to have a website with like little short animations, and my friend John just suggested completely, with zero effort, that I call it Octopus Pie. So I was like, that sounds great. The domain name's available. And I bought it and sat on it for like a year and didn't do anything with it. And then, when I felt sort of this urgency to start a comic series, I had the idea, but I didn't really care what the title was going to be. So it just ended up being the domain name that I already had. I do like telling people that it's a metaphor for something greater, but I'm not going to bore you with that.
Well, that's the great thing. You can just have, you put the name out there and everyone else comes up with what it means, And you're
I am
like,
the walrus.
Exactly. It's exactly what you thought it was, this other kind of genius, crazy thing. Yes.
Absolutely.
So you also teach art. What is it about the had you always kind of wanted to be a teacher, or is that just kind of was that a natural outgrowth of?
No, I didn't expect to. I mean, I love the idea of doing little panel discussions, answering people's questions. But the school SBA where I teach approached me about it. I actually went there from like 2002 to 2006. And the idea of going back there to teach was pretty awesome. So I was very eager as soon as the idea was planted in my head to do it. And yeah, it turns out I really enjoy it.
How long have you been? Because I work for a university down here in the DC area. I get a kick from working with kids. Depending on the kids, really. I'll be honest, but
Sure.
I'm like thinking of all these exceptions now. Like, oh, that motherfucker. But like, how long have you been doing the teaching thing?
This is year 4 for me.
Okay, cool. And you had mentioned that you were, for a period of time, you were working kind of outside or living outside of New York City. Was it harder to write Octopus Pie during that period of time, or had you just like such a wealth of experience that it just kind of still flowed naturally?
I think the stories were very different, and they were focused on different things, even though they took place in New York. Like, I lived in Portland for most of it, and the stories I wrote there were about brewing your own beer, bike festivals. There was a story about a guy that just showed up on their couch and lived there for like 2 weeks, and nobody knew where he was from. So all that stuff was pretty, I feel like in hindsight, I saw it as stuff that could easily happen in New York, but I think it's very Portland in nature.
Well, shoot, how many weeks did I live on your couch, Chris?
Yeah, no.
When you were in Bushwick?
Plenty. Yeah, no, all the scenarios you came up with still believable for me, and I lived there, so.
Yeah, everyone's just a little more broke in Portland.
Yeah.
Well, I have to ask, we've had people that live in Portland on the show before. Like, and for some reason, there's a lot of comic creators in Portland.
Yeah.
But
it's cheap. Like, cost of living is low.
okay.
And best comedy comes from sadness, so.
Sure.
Got him.
Right.
Yeah, not quite as depressing as Seattle.
Nah.
But love Nirvana though.
And Heart.
And Heart, yeah, God, but Heart isn't depressing. Heart's awesome.
True.
And Frasier.
And
That's not music.
No, that's just depressing.
Getting them.
How accurate is Portlandia to Portland?
Oh man, it's just like, it's right on. I don't think you could get any closer. Like, they're clearly in love with the city. Like, you couldn't make something like that from a dismissive point of view. They just they love all the freaks and the bougies and musicians and everyone. It really is accurate.
Spot on. Like, almost a documentary.
Yeah, almost. It's troubling.
So next year, like I kind of alluded to, is the big 10th anniversary of Octopus Pie. Do you have anything big planned?
Yeah, I plan to end it.
Oh.
I've been doing it for 10 years, and I'm 31 years old, and I'm just creaky, like 1 foot in the grave, and
Well, shoot, Chris, you
writing
turned 31.
Yeah, I turned 31 this year. Is that
We're
what I'm
all
looking
going
forward
out.
to?
I mean, I still have a lot of ideas, but most of them involve the characters aging out of their 20s, and it was never really my intention to do that with it. So I'd rather just, I'm kind of angling toward them all sort of hitting the 30-year mark, or at least, acknowledging that it's about to come up, and ending it on that note where their 20s have ended. And I think that's probably the best place to leave it. I didn't really want to continue it beyond that, and I definitely didn't want to keep rehashing the same period of one's 20s. So, I see an arc to my own life in that regard, and I'd like to be able to have that arc for the characters too.
Well, obviously, wow. I mean, like, not to. Because I'm kind of invested in these guys now. Like, without giving too much away, can Hannah actually have a happy ending?
Oh, well, I think so. I mean, at very least, a hopeful ending. I won't she's not gonna walk into the ocean or anything.
Turn
I
into
think she'll
Carrie.
be fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Because again, the Dexter's Lab influence is like paramount for me. Like, I'm a big Tartakovsky fan, and as soon as I saw like kind of the way she carried herself in this first volume, I was like, "That's Dee Dee." Like, if Dee Dee was a stoner.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, well, if Dee Dee grew up, I mean,
She probably would end up being a stoner.
If she went to college and was well liked, I think that would be exactly how she turned out.
And, yeah.
And it's hard for that kind of person. You have fun and do a lot of drugs in your heyday, and then realize that life goes on beyond that. I think it is exactly the trajectory you'd see for Dee Dee. But I think there's some hope there too.
Right, because like she is normally, when we first see her, she's very hopeful, and then without going into too much detail for the listeners at home, she does kind of go through the ringer a bit down the line, and it really is kind of like a swap in many ways. Eve kind of, I felt, kind of finds her niche, whereas Hannah is kind of lost in the ether a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think Hannah was ever really particularly hopeful. I think she was just fulfilled with the small world that she had, and seeing that world shift out of her control is not something she ever expected to have. Whereas Eve was kind of going with that, like she's kind of, like water, adjusting to the world around her. So things are a little easier for her in that regard.
Right. Now I gotta. This is actually technically kind of a reprint through Image. What was it about Image, instead of say your previous publisher or self-publishing it, that really drew you to that publisher?
Well, I mean, Random House I think is a little too big for me. Maybe if they published it now, it would fare a little bit better than it did, but the audience just wasn't there in 2009, 2010. So that ship has seemingly sailed. As far as Image, though, they know how to market comics, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with that. I think they have a much clearer idea than either a major book publisher or myself even of what a comic audience is looking for and how to market to them. So I see it as a good opportunity that way. In terms of self-publishing, I can probably get paid the most directly that way, but I don't know how to get it into stores, or I do, and I just don't want to go through the all the paperwork, the paperwork involved. So them getting it in stores, them submitting it to award committees, bringing it to conventions, promoting it in places I can't promote it. That's the real hook for me with them, and so far they've really had a handle on it. So I'm very optimistic about that.
That's cool. You did a fucking awesome job with the Adventure Time comic, by the way. Do you ever see yourself like going back to stuff like that?
I mean, I might do it again. As far as licensed comics go, I enjoy it, and it's a fun little thought experiment. But I'd rather be working on my own stuff if I have that luxury. So I mean, I did enjoy it. I think it's definitely a good project. It's I don't know. It's a way to develop your skills writing other people's characters, and I really enjoy the opportunity to do that once in a while. But at the same time, where I really get to stretch myself out is with my own characters. So that's what I like most.
Without giving the game away, do you have anything post Octopus Pie or Pie planned?
No, I have no idea.
Rest and relaxation.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'll just I don't know, buy a house and mow my lawn and be a total normie.
Move over to Queens or something.
Oh, all right, one step at a time. But maybe though, that's entirely possible.
Yeah,
just go out to Long Island or something, you know.
Well, that's where I came from. So
well, then never
mind.
Yeah, you can never go home, or is it you can always go home?
I mean, if the price of your hometown rises, you can't go home.
Yeah. Fair point. Fair point.
True.
There's always Staten Island, though, right?
Oof.
Okay, is that
they're true enough? There always is Staten Island.
They have their own Yankees team, so you know.
Yeah, yeehaw! Their own
That's
ferry
right.
too. But so this is something we ask everybody that comes on the show. What, Meredith, are you currently geeking out over? Be it music, movies, TV.
Oh man, what am I into right now? God, I don't know. I'm like, my husband's sitting right here. What am I into right now? What am I like geeking out over?
You mostly geek out over music.
Yeah. Yeah, what was good music this past year?
Just right now, you're into like pedal, like.
Uh-huh.
New Metallica album this year.
Is there really?
That's the word on the
They're
street.
in the studio,
Yeah.
supposedly.
They're recording 30 seconds every 3 years.
So it's like Chinese democracy?
Yeah.
Chinese democracy too.
Yeah.
Dude, even Saint
I'm,
Anger was better than Chinese democracy.
There was some good stuff on
No,
Chinese
no.
democracy.
Mighty strong words, Runt.
I will say there's some early Axl influence on Chinese democracy that I really loved. Like,
And they're back too.
like Street of Dreams.
Yeah. Kind of cohesing.
I don't even know though. I think the thing about metal, like metal has a shelf life, like because like metal has only been around for basically 30 years.
But Lemmy though.
It's true. But like one of the great things about you're talking about like with Octopus Pie, like 10 years, kind of wrapping it up, like knowing when to going out on top and having a story you want to tell. With metal, we haven't really got to see metal age to like into the 70s, and we're starting to see that now. And it's like maybe Metallica should call it a day, or maybe or maybe.
Yeah, but isn't there like a whole resurgence right now? I mean, I'm not super invested in it, but like death metal is like all the rage right now. That's where everyone's experimenting.
Yeah, no, I mean like in terms of like the genre, like metal I think should go on forever and ever, but it's interesting to see like these bands like the good yin and yang is like Iron Maiden put out an album this past year that was really cool.
Fucking
Like
awesome.
and Iron Maiden is still putting out like some of their best music is stuff that's come out in the 21st century, and which is crazy to think that they started in like the late 70s. But
Right, that's as long as it's been around.
yeah, and so we're starting to really see these pioneers of metal really hit an age where it's like, what do you do? Like, because freaking Tom Araya and Slayer has a metal like pipe in his neck or metal rod in his neck because he's headbanging too much. You know what I mean? Like his body is falling apart because of heavy metal. So it'll be
Now
interesting to
he
see.
is heavy metal.
He is literally metal. He can't walk through a detector
More
without.
machine than man
Yeah.
now.
But no, it's just I think it's interesting. Seeing Metallica getting close to their 60s, and it's like what do we do? Because they're very much still in the forefront. Going, what do you do when you hit 60 as a metal artist? What do you do when you hit 70?
It goes back to what we were saying about Bowie, that like if you have something to say, then you can keep doing it.
Yeah.
I would say I guess the thing I'm most excited about right now is the new Kanye West, which I think is coming out next month.
Yeah.
And
Swish.
he's a good example of that too, where every like I've been listening to like College Dropout and everything in order pretty much, and just thinking about what he had to say 10 plus years ago and what he has to say right now, and that's what keeps the music fresh is being able to take your life and translate it into a very youth-oriented medium like music and say something new with it, and that's not easy. It's a really fascinating artist that can do that.
Yeah, I think the thing with like Kanye is a good example of when he did Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, that he was so much about bringing in all these other genres, and that hooked someone like me who never really listened to a lot of Kanye West music early on, that he can, do kind of this operatic type music or these big harmonies or have, 21st Century Schizoid Man, like, a sample in a hip hop song. And then, he decides he wants to do an electronic album in the era of dubstep, but, have no wobbling, no, dubstep. He wants to do, gets the two guys from Daft Punk to help him and builds the biggest synthesizer you can build and makes a really angry, raw, like punk rock with Yeezus, like, which is my favorite Kanye West album, like a really angry, almost like violent, like electronic punk album, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? I mean, what is it about metal and Kanye that you kind of hook on? Is it that kind of like rough around the edges? Is it the youthful exuberance that really gets it?
Well, I mean, with Kanye West, I don't think it's really youthful exuberance so much anymore, but he's really, really into his own work. Like, he's very fascinated with the culture around him, and then he's very fascinated with himself and the culture around him. And I mean, everyone thinks that's so funny, but it's also just so fascinating to watch somebody that curious about the world around him do all these things, to have all that talent and then to actually apply it in interesting ways to new stuff. I think that's what I love most, is that he really does have, like, the youthful thing about him is the fascination that he has with his work and all the new stuff that's coming out around him that he wants to, cherry pick and use to inspire him. So that's what I love, is just the curiosity about it.
And then on the metal end, would you say it's just the drums or just the guitars or just the fact that it's fucking awesome?
Well, I'm not an authority on that. It's you guys.
Fair point. But so as a bit of a to kind of close out, what can we expect in the next, I guess, final year of Octopus Pie? And when do you have a ballpark on when Volume 2 might drop?
Volume 2 is actually coming out the month after Volume 1, so it's going to be wham, bam, bam for the next
wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
4 months. Yeah, it's going to be wham, bam, thank you, ma'am for the next 4 months. There's going to be Volume 2 drops in March, 3 in April, the month that comes after March, and then
there you go.
And then in May, it's going to be a brand new book that's not been reprinted. It's just going to be all new material.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Oh right, you're asking if I had like anything I was going to say about the next few months of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but I'm trying to focus on the things that I see as sort of the turning point where one goes from their 20s to their 30s, and I'm focusing on some of those aspects of what I think it is to be a person making that transition. So I think those are the final issues that I'm going to be touching on, are the things that I think define that period in the characters' lives. So I'm pretty excited about it, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of ends on a bit of a cliffhanger with Eve. Just spoilers for listeners at home. It's online, like on Octopus Pie. Just, plug your ears for like 30 seconds. It kind of has like Eve, that last strip so far, having an existential crisis on the Wonder Wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm definitely curious to see what becomes of all that.
Yeah, has she hit rock bottom yet? It's hard to say, but I think at some point I will make that clear, whether she has or not.
Right on. Well, Meredith, thanks for coming on. I won't keep you from your seamless for too long.
Oh, not at all. It's it knows how to stay hot.
Of course, right on. Well, yeah. Thanks again for coming on. And if you ever want to come on again, talk Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4, by all means.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been.
Oh.
Huh?
No, go ahead.
No, I mean that's all I had.
Flattering me. Well, no, thank you so much, you guys. Yeah, I would love to come on again.
Right on. Well, this is thanks again.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you have a wonderful night.
Yeah, you too.
And keep on rocking. Right?
That's right.
In the free world. Yeah.
Uh-huh. No, wait a minute.
Oh, Neil Young. Oh,
Yeah.
get him out of here.
Get out of here, Neil Young.
What a lovely lady.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Apparently
Yeah.
not a metal fan.
No.
We
I would-
misheard her. We
I-
misheard
I
her
wouldn't-
husband.
I wouldn't have hijacked the interview talking about the
Iron Maiden?
the timeline of metal if that was the case, so I apologize.
Apologies. We thought we heard your husband say metal.
We
Yeah.
even went back and checked the tape afterwards just to see if we were
Yeah.
crazy.
I would have spent more time talking about
Jury's
Kanye.
still out if we're crazy.
Yeah.
But we thought we heard metal.
Yeah. So
But, I think we should
Tweet us if you heard metal too.
Yeah, I think we should kind of take some time though. We were rocked by two losses
yeah.
this year.
And
this week,
and even like a ton more like smaller
Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Grizzly Adams.
Yeah. A whole bunch of things happened right at this pretty much within a week of each other. But the two biggest ones, Bowie and Alan Rickman. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean Bowie, like we were saying in our interview, I mean talk about a guy, almost a 50-year recording career. He's got 27 studio albums, 2 soundtracks, appeared in a lot of our favorite movies. Okay, maybe not a lot of our favorite movies, but he was in Labyrinth and he was in The Prestige. And if you really want to see it, he was in The Hunger and
A Man Who Fell to Earth.
Man Who Fell to Earth. He was the man who fell to Earth. Yeah, it was just in
Zoolander.
Yeah,
Is he in Zoolander?
probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't heard anything saying that he was. Apparently, Lazarus, the play Lazarus, which he's got the song and video for on Black Star, which I totally recommend as an album, and it's just a beautiful goodbye to an artist that I think we all love and to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
For me, if there was ever an heir apparent to the Beatles and they're constantly changing style, because once the Beatles started to experiment with drugs and music, it was always different for them. They would always kind of reimagine what they were. And if there was ever an artist after the Beatles that did it and did it well, it was David Bowie. And he did it so much longer. And arguably, this comes from a guy who has his own Beatles podcast through the Geek Out Network.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, once the Beatles were figuring it out, he knew what he was doing for the most part. And a lot of Bowie albums are better than there's Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah.
And
Well, also, and not to put down the Spiders from Mars and everyone he worked with, but largely by himself.
yeah, it was almost always different. He
Yeah.
would keep Tony Visconti, the producer, for a lot of it. But he's working with the guys he's working with Luther Vandross. He's working with John Lennon on Young Americans.
Mhm.
He's working with Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
He's working with Queen.
Oh yeah.
Though isn't that your least favorite Queen album?
Well, I mean, it's not because
Not
of
because
that.
of Bowie.
No, not because of Under Pressure. I mean, that song's fucking fantastic.
You just prefer
It's just-
the Vanilla Ice version of the song.
Exactly. It's just the fact that the rest of that
Stop a lot of you fans.
it's
with
it's
that
just the
one.
fact that the rest of that album is pretty terrible. But that has nothing to do with David Bowie.
Well, it's because they're at their most contentious.
That's
And they're ready to explode.
to sidetrack on Queen. That's kind of how I feel about the Flash Gordon soundtrack. It's great in the context of watching Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
But there's only one good song.
Well, I
And-
would
and-
say 2, but I know what you're going
Yeah.
But the fact is that there's 2 songs with lyrics.
Yeah.
And the rest is just instrumental.
Yeah, it's just a dum 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 dum. Yeah, and samples.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I mean, I feel like it shouldn't surprise anyone. But yeah, my favorite era and my favorite Bowie album, like Meredith, is The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
Yeah, I mean that's the album.
Yeah. If you take that off the table, what is it? For you, it's Aladdin Sane.
Probably Aladdin Sane, yeah.
Yeah.
Diamond Dogs is very close second. I really loved the 70s glam Bowie
Yeah.
a lot.
Not darker, Thin White Duke Bowie.
I mean, the 80s stuff's great. I'm definitely no master with the knowledge of the 80s stuff. I really dig the 70s stuff. But Yeah, I mean, I took I was in a piano lab class in ninth grade, and for music stuff, and we had to do they gave us a piece of paper, and you had to pick artist to do kind of a paper and presentation and deconstruction on their music as a pianist. And David Bowie was on the list. I knew it. David Bowie was on the list. I was very proud because I don't think it got picked up anywhere. But
But then you ruined it.
yeah, but
I literally just pantomimed me going.
that's okay.
tee
We can all
hee.
laugh at pianist.
Yeah.
But more importantly,
But
as I said, but after pianist is
I'll tell you something after this.
okay. Is that anyway? They had a list, right, of artists, and I picked David Bowie because I knew him, fairly well at the time in ninth grade. But I really wanted to do Paul McCartney, and he wasn't on the list. And whenever I went up to my teacher, and she goes, "If you want to do somebody else, ask." And kind of give an example, and I'll say yes or no. And I was like, well, "What about Paul McCartney, the Beatles, piano player, and Let It Be,
Wings,
May Have
yeah.
Amazed, yeah, all that kind of stuff." And she was like, "No," and I was like, "Fair enough." And this is before iTunes and stuff. So I needed, and I hate doing this, but I needed an era of Bowie as opposed to just an album. So I bought a greatest hits, and I'm not a big fan of like greatest hits, but it was like the '70s era of Bowie, and so. It's got like, all the great glam stuff on it. And so a song like Aladdin Sane, where he doesn't play the piano, is the song I used, not as like an FU to the teacher, but I'm like, here's a great piano solo that's madness in one take,
Yeah.
but it's so beautiful at the same time. Or the beginning of Let's Spend the Night Together, the Stones cover, where you're just banging on the keys. But that's ninth grade.
Punch the keys, for God's sake.
Yeah, but ninth grade is really where my love of Bowie started. And I was telling Sam off mic, it's kind of sad that, I've been listening to him since, but it really took his death for me to really start listening to him again.
Well, and I was talking to Josh about this, I think the beginning of the week when this happened. Like, Josh was kind of like, well, you never, like, wear your Bowie fandom on your sleeve. And it's like, well, it was always there.
Yeah.
I just, like, it was something that came up. It was topical, but which is kind of sad because he had just put out a new album. It should be fucking topical anyway. But no, I think one of the cool things about Bowie, like the Beatles, is everybody's got like an era that they maybe like. I'm not saying everybody's a Bowie fan. A lot of people clearly are, but there's an era that you're more likely to identify with.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's going to be, outside of Ziggy Stardust, it's probably. Ooh, that's tough. 80s Bowie takes a lot of flack, like because of like Tin Machine, because of Tonight, basically where he's doing dance pop. But for me, like Let's Dance and Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, because Ashes to Ashes is my favorite Bowie song.
Yeah.
And you were talking about how Starman is really something you connected with.
Yeah, I talked a bit. I think I stumbled through it talking on the interview about why I think it means so much. And that's a song I've always liked. And my favorite Bowie song is Life on Mars. But
it's a good show too.
Yeah, but the thing about Starman that's so great, and I'll try to just really quickly again, is the fact that it's the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. The album really hammered home what a concept album is. Sgt. Pepper's is a concept album, like Lennon said it, as much as the fact that there's the beginning and the end. The middle is just whatever, and it worked because we said it was a concept album. Where the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust is a concept album, and it's really
It ends with him dying.
Yeah, and that final like just bombastic string, and Rock and Roll Suicide is another song where so many people had this amazing outpouring of during Rock and Roll Suicide. He's screaming into the microphone, "You're not alone." And he's like, "I'm going to be there, when you need me most. You're not alone, give me your hands," all that kind of just this great stuff. And that final, like almost day in the life ending of just that final string.
Yeah.
But anyway, Starman's great where now that he's gone, this idea of this man coming through, the speakers and inspiring the young generation and giving him hope. Now that he is this otherworldly kind of thing, it's really inspiring. It's also it's sad now because we know that he's gone, but
Yeah.
it's inspiring still. And the Somewhere Over the Rainbow melody.
Yeah, touching on me and Ashes to Ashes, I think, so by the mid-'70s, he's relocated to Los Angeles when he's recording Station to Station. And that is an album of a man possessed. Like, he's, like, surrounded by occult artifacts. He's, like, hooked on cocaine like a motherfucker. And so he's putting all his paranoia, all his anxiety, all his fear of death The latest album, Black Star, works so well in tandem with Station to Station because that's the darkest album. Station to Station is the darkest album he ever recorded, whereas Black Star is almost more hopeful about death because he accepts death as the inevitability that it is.
Sure.
And so he records Station to Station, phenomenal album. He comes up with the persona of the Thin White Duke, the Return of the Thin White Duke, and he's kind of this almost robotic figure that's like singing about the death of society with kind of like this robotic sneer, kind of a sheet of ice playing at being a raging inferno. And he comes to his senses, moves to fucking Berlin to record the Berlin trilogy so he can detox. That's an album about detox and self-discovery, or a trilogy of albums more appropriately. And you get Ashes to Ashes, the centerpiece of Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, his first 1980s album. And it's a song where he's talking about how he still has those cravings, still has those addictions, but they're tied to Major Tom. And so he's literally laying Major Tom to rest. And you look at the Black Star music video, and the first thing you see is fucking the skeleton, the corpse of Major Tom. I don't know. That's just me going. For me, I think there's a favorite era. Somebody has like a era of Bowie where they're just like, even if they don't necessarily like the music, they're like, that looks cool.
Yeah, I mean,
well, for me, it was always like, oh, that looks cool. Like he was always an interesting artist to me. Unfortunately, I never really got into Bowie. Like pretty much any song that I ever heard of his, all the popular songs, all the stuff that was on the radio, like it was all good. Like I was never like, oh fuck this track or something like that. But I mean that's because they were always the popular ones.
Take that, Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. The Eagles. I mean I've never heard an Eagles song that I didn't like, but I felt it was poignant.
I feel a presence I haven't felt in a while glaring at you.
Ever since. But yeah. So for me, it was more Bowie the actor, because like I grew up on Labyrinth like most people our age.
Sure.
And then when the Prestige came out, like I was just first off didn't know it was him until the credits rolled at the end, and I was like, what? Like, because they did such a great job on on the makeup, his accent, all kinds of stuff. And then, like, watching it, like, second, third time, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's Bowie. Now that I know it's Bowie.
Nolan had to personally beg him to be in the movie. He had offered him, like, 3 times, and he always turned it down. He's like, I'm not acting anymore. And he's like, no, you need to fucking be Tesla.
I'm glad that he finally agreed, because that's one of my favorite performances in a Nolan movie, if I may. And
you're a huge Tesla fan.
Yes, that too. I love the man, the car, the band.
The band.
Yeah. The coil.
Yeah. Actually, pretty fun coil. Legit, I've played with the Tesla coil. It's a lot of fun. Kind of stuff. But yeah, so like, so that's what Bowie was to me. Like it was an actor who didn't act a whole lot, who also happened to have a singing career that I respected. So luckily, we still have his music. We still have his movies. We can still enjoy everything that he's done.
Just like he hints at in Lazarus again. Physically, he's done, but he'll be with us in some form for the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's fucking awesome about David Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks, David.
Yeah, and then the same with Alan Rickman.
I was talking to my dad about that.
Yeah.
I talk to him every now and again. He was just over in Alexandria. And I was talking to him, and I was like, we were comparing. He was more shook up about the death of Alan Rickman than he was about the death of David Bowie.
As was I. Like, as I was explaining, like Bowie was lower key to me. Like, I love Alan Rickman, the actor. I mean, Dogma and Galaxy Quest are like my 2 favorite of his. And then like he's always going to be a great Hans Gruber. Like that's it's either Hans Gruber or Snape. It seems to be like who people are like. That's him. That's Alan Rickman.
The funny thing is, my father was more about him being Severus Snape. And I'm like a relatively... I'm going to venture this out here, and you can disagree. I would wager that I am probably the biggest Harry Potter fan in this room.
I would take... I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or I would say that's likely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for me, Alan Rickman will always be Hans Gruber.
Yeah.
And I said that to my dad, and he was like, who? And I was like, the bad guy in Die Hard. And he was like, oh, right. Like, kind of like he had to like make that connection because for me he'll always be Hans Gruber. He'll always be the sheriff of Nottingham and Robin Hood.
Oh
Prince.
yeah,
He is the best part because that movie is some shit.
it's pretty
Yeah.
bad.
But he is the best part of Robin Hood.
Also,
Prince of
does a
Thieves.
great turn in Sweeney Todd as the
Oh, yeah.
judge.
Oh yeah.
Originally a role for Christopher Lee, but he was too old, so they gave it to Alan
Mm.
Rickman. He's great in it.
What's funny is that his role in Galaxy Quest.
Oh yeah,
I heard hit a little close to home for him. Basically, playing an actor who was like a one-trick pony kind of thing. He was like, ever since I did Hans Gruber, like I've just been like typecast as the bad guy. So it was nice to finally get to be a different character. You know, like relatively speaking, a good guy. You know, not even relative. He was on. You know, he was on the crew that was the good guys, but still being like pretty much himself because he's a classically trained actor. He's a great, a phenomenal actor. You know, and then only doing one role for like his entire, at least American film career.
Yeah, and I would argue he has some probably. I mean, sure, you could say Tim Allen does, but I would argue that actually the biggest personal growth we see in the film comes from Alan Rickman's character.
For sure. Coming to terms with him being, I forget his character's name, or even the character on the Galaxy Quest show within the movie, but coming to terms with being that guy and being like, you know what, by Grabthar's hammer, you will be avenged. You know,
Watching that weird alien, I think Rainn Wilson die, you know, and how he kind of reacts to that. But yeah, I mean that was a rough one too, just like the 1-2 punch, you know.
yeah, because it was 2 days apart.
Yeah, both 69, both
Yeah.
the cancer,
Mm.
both British. Yeah, it was rough. But on is this even a lighter note? Jake and I did see The Revenant.
we did.
Mm.
Is that a lighter note?
It's not because it's not an uplifting movie. I mean, the idea of fighting for your life, I guess, but it's a movie that is an achievement in filmmaking in the sense that, yes, you got the natural light, some amazing shots, some great scenes. There are a couple scenes in this movie that I thought were better constructed and performed than anything else in 2015. That being said, it's a hard pill to swallow because there's a lot to digest in this movie.
It's 2.5 hours. Doesn't have to be 2.5
No,
hours.
and it's my immediate thing when we left the theater was we were kind of like, we were kind of just stumbling around because it's such a heavy movie
It is, yeah.
and it does drag. But
well, the big thing is spoilers if you care about The Revenant. It does kind of empty its bag of tricks too early.
Mm-hmm.
Like the stuff you see in the trailer, the bear, the attack on the riverbank,
Mm-hmm.
that all happens within the first 30 minutes.
Yeah,
And there's 2 more hours of movie.
yeah, and Leo's performance, he deals with it because it's a motherfucker to act in and be a part of for everybody.
Apparently, given what Inarritu puts him through.
Yeah, but the performance is very much a reactionary piece where he's not acting cold. The motherfucker is freezing. You know what I mean?
He's not acting like he's being carried down river.
Yeah,
He
he's
is being
carried down river. Now,
He's not acting like he's
it's-
being mauled by a bear.
the dude plays injured well. I mean, and it's a good performance. Is it my favorite Leo performance? No. Is it the one who's probably going to win an Oscar for? Yes, that's fine. Because he's deserved an Oscar before once or twice. You know.
Yeah, but so did Peter O'Toole, and he never got one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Unless you count the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yeah.
And so did
Which he did.
who were we talking about at the at dinner? Scorsese? No.
Well, Scorsese, yeah, he got
Yeah.
it for The Departed, not like, say, Goodfellas or Raging Bull,
Yeah.
Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah. You know his good movies. I like The Departed.
I like Departed fine. Yeah, it's
But yeah, I
pretty
mean,
good.
the Oscars have become very much a
They were always political,
whoopsies.
man. They were always political.
Whoopsies. We forgot.
Oh yeah. By the way.
You know, with Scent of a Woman, which I feel like is Oscar worthy, but I mean, it's not his best performance. You know, Pacino's best performance.
He was
But it's all-
nominated previously for Dick Tracy.
It's true.
Mm.
But again, it's all for fun. It's all for fun.
Oh,
But-
if I had been a superhero, I would have got it.
If I'd been Dick Tracy, I would have got Best Actor. I don't even know who was up against. And I don't know who he lost for for Best Supporting for Dick Tracy for. If you've never seen Dick Tracy,
Pause this podcast.
pause this spot.
Hold up. Is that the year of Goodfellas, Dances with Wolves?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because it's early 90s. Hang
Yeah.
on. Let me look at this real quick.
Yeah, but
But if you haven't seen it,
yeah.
treat yourself.
Do you have any intent on seeing The Revenant, Chris?
I mean, it's at my theater. So if the timing works out that I can see it, like after one of my shifts or before one of my shifts, sure. But like even when like the trailers came out, I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know. The trailer made it look too long, and I didn't even know it was 2.5 hours.
Not like Bridge of Spies long.
Yeah. Like at least it looked more interesting than Bridge of Spies. So
Hey,
like,
Bridge of Spies, fuck you.
yeah, right. Watch that win. Was that just Golden Globe?
No, it's nominated. It's
Oof,
nominated.
watch that win. But yeah, like Bridge of Spies, I never had any intent to see it. Revenant, I'm like, if it works out, I'll see it.
Yeah. I'll put it this way, too. If The Revenant gets Best Picture, I won't be, like, annoyed.
No, me neither.
I think it's a better shot film than Birdman. Like, cinematography.
Oh,
I think it deserves all the technical awards it's nominated for. I don't think Tom Hardy should be nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
No, and I love Tom Hardy more than anyone else. But
For
yeah,
basically being, like, super evil Yosemite Sam.
Tom Hardy should win for Mad Max, but I don't think he's nominated.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no.
I mean, not that I really know any of the nominations.
I will
But
say-
again, I am the dissenter who does not care about the Oscars.
If we watch it in theaters like we did last year
Mhm.
and Bridge of Spies wins, I'm just going to scream, fuck you, and leave the theater. So now you want it to happen.
I actually kind of want it to happen. Now I want to go to the theater and watch it.
Well, I thought...
I
you
still
know-
have the pictures that we took in the photo booth.
Oh, yeah. I thought, so do I. I've got my own strip. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A good way to do it.
It was awkward that they had the commercial breaks and they tried to do like some fun stuff during the commercial breaks, but they had no idea when the in and outs for the breaks were. What understandable? It's live, and they aren't like a properly licensed. They're just paying the public presentation rights, but they're not actually like, oh, the Oscars hired us to show it.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me. I like the pomp and circumstance of the Oscars. Is it up its own ass? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Is it political like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Oh yeah. I mean, but I that's part of the joy of the Golden Globes is that they're like visibly like drunk and stuff.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck.
Yeah. So
Sorry, real quick. I found Joe Pesci won.
well, for Goodfellas.
Yeah, over. Also, Graham Greene for Dances with Wolves was nominated with Al Pacino. Andy Garcia for The Godfather Part 3.
Yeah.
Bruce Davidson
The
for
best
Longtime
Godfather.
Companion. Joe Pesci, of course, won for Goodfellas. Of course, we also know Dances with Wolves was the best picture, and best director was Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Still haven't seen it. I saw Avatar though, so I figure I get the gist.
Yeah. Or The Last Samurai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you want to see a better movie, watch Dances with Wolves.
I saw Pocahontas. It's fine.
I shake my head in
Yeah.
shame.
Well, wait. Do you like Avatar better than Dances with Wolves?
No.
Okay, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
So-
Last Samurai though. Over.
No, not
You're-
for me.
Yeah.
I love Tom Cruise, but that
and
movie
you
is
own-
misguided.
You own this like super long Dances with Wolves.
I own the regular cut. I own like the 4-hour cut
Mhm.
because of the commentary.
You're like me with Blade Runner,
Yeah.
except it's not a 4-hour cut.
Except also nobody else does this with Dances with Wolves except me. I don't think Kevin Costner owns both versions of Dances
Do you
with
think
Wolves.
he likes any of his movies?
Waterworld.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I can't remember. Now that we're talking about Kevin Costner, I can't remember if I mentioned it on the podcast or commentary, but a while ago, I think it was a podcast.
His best Western is Silverado.
No, well, I mean, it could be. That's not the fact that I'm talking about.
Sam and I have
a
very
while
different
ago-
views on Kevin Costner.
A while ago, I mentioned that there was a movie where a whole bunch of it was like a post-apocalyptic thing, and people were watching Sound of Music.
Oh, yeah.
It was The Postman. I was right.
Postman.
Well, there you go, Kevin Costner.
His best post-apocalyptic film of 2.
I'd watch Postman over Waterworld.
Any day.
Yeah.
of the
Any day
fucking
of the
week.
week
Fucking
and twice
day.
on Sunday.
And we have a commentary for Waterworld.
I would rather watch 3,000 Miles to Graceland than Waterworld.
I'd
I
watch
would-
both cuts of 3,000
I
Miles
would
to
rather
Graceland.
watch Wild Wild West because I love that
You'd
movie.
rather watch Wild Wild West than like any
Yeah, that's
Kevin
true.
Costner movie.
Also, real quick,
Yeah.
do Kevin Costner and Kurt Russell hate each other? Because, first of all, Tombstone and Wyatt Earp's happening at the same time, and Kevin Costner went out of his way to try to make Tombstone, not work,
yeah,
which is a dick move. But I like both movies, so I'm in a conundrum.
yeah. We're kind of, if you're talking different views on Costner, I'm team Tombstone.
Yeah. I mean, if it has to be a team, it's Team Wyatt Earp for me, but I fucking love Tombstone.
I have only seen Tombstone, but I did love it.
But and then 3,000 Miles to Graceland, like they fought over the cut.
Yeah.
So I don't
So
think
is it
they
the
like each other.
Costner versus the Russell cut?
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't think they like each other. One was going for comedy, one was going for like violence,
Yeah.
and Costner won out
Yeah.
supposedly.
Which is because it's the more violent film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah.
The most violent film.
Yeah. Anyone actually ever see A Most Violent Year?
No, it's on Amazon Prime, and after
It's got
we
Oscar Isaac and Jessica Chastain.
that's the thing. I mean, that's like two of the greatest things ever.
Period. If it had Idris Elba, it would be a clean sweep.
Yeah, and if Adele was somewhere in there, then it's my favorite movie of all time.
Singing is Nicki Minaj.
Nicki Minaj's verse in Monster, which is check
If
that
you
out
guys,
on YouTube.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen the Corbin like car karaoke or karaoke, which is not his word. I saw it on the internet a minute ago with Adele. It's amazing.
Out of all the things for Adele to pick, she picks the freaking verse from Monster from Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, which you can hear on basically all our commentaries.
Yeah. So, and she kills it.
Yeah. No, and it's such a good interview with her too.
It is,
because
yeah.
she's so like down to earth. She's real.
Yeah.
You know.
That's why so many people love Adele, is because she has more success than almost anybody else alive has with how well her albums are doing, and she's the same.
I would drink wine
person.
with her.
Yeah.
I would drink anything with her.
Yeah.
Even
I mean,
tequila.
but I know she likes wine based on the interview.
Yeah.
Because she's talking about she went to a restaurant like an hour early and just started drinking wine and then started interacting with her fans,
Paying for people's meals.
paying for meals, giving out free tickets to her concert.
Ah,
Yeah.
I want to be.
I stayed up. I woke up early for those tickets and I couldn't get them. I just need to be at a restaurant when Adele's there, and she'll hook me up.
that's the trick, man.
Yeah, and
That's
she
the
gets
trick.
your email too.
That's right.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, you guys got anything to add?
No, I think I'm good.
Not really.
You right?
Revenant was okay.
Revenant, yeah, it's all right. It's not a bad film.
No.
Again, I won't be sore if it wins Best Picture. There's only one movie I'd be sore if it wins Best Picture.
Foxcatcher.
No, I mean,
They're like, we're bringing one back this year.
Yeah.
Also, how
Out
stupid
of
is
that
it?
one and get past us.
Last thing. How stupid is it that there's 10 slots for Best Picture, and they don't use all 10 slots?
You have to have a certain amount of votes to get the nomination.
Oh wait, so they didn't even use up all 10 slots.
No.
Then why the fuck isn't Straight Outta Compton?
Yeah, put
Yeah.
Creed Straight Outta Compton in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree.
No, I'm blaming you, Sam.
Yeah, fuck you, Sam.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Yeah, but speaking of that, just to comment on the whitewashing of the Oscars, someone was complaining about it, and someone else commented like, "Well, I mean, Straight Outta Compton's nominated for Best Screenplay," and
Get the fuck out of here.
Also
written
written
by two
by,
white dudes.
white dudes.
Yeah.
so
How
Whatever.
come? How come Compton by Dr. Dre didn't get nominated for best soundtrack?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jamie Foxx said as much during the Golden Globes.
yeah, James Gunn fucking loved Creed, and
We all love Creed.
well, yeah, but I'm just saying James Gunn, part of the people that vote.
the Academy. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was another last thing just to wrap it all. But David Bowie, he was planning a possible cameo for David Bowie in Guardians 2
Starman plays in Guardians 1.
and Moon Age Daydream.
Was it? Yeah.
It's Moon Age Daydream. Yeah. And then he was like the only
They
person.
don't play
who's-
Starman?
No, I think it's Moon Age Daydream.
I'm pretty sure it's.
I have no
I think
idea.
it's Moon Age Daydream.
Okay.
I mean, either one
feel,
is
I feel
good,
like
but,
someone's indicating that Jake's right.
but either way, he hinted at the idea of having the only person to have another song on Volume 2 would be David Bowie.
Yeah.
And the scene was going to be cut, but he's like, you know what, maybe we can work it back in there.
Yeah.
So
Maybe put in. Shoot, I don't know.
Maybe they'll find life on Mars.
Yeah. Space Oddity, Suffragette City.
Suffragette City.
That's a fun one.
Or Rock and Roll Suicide.
Roll
Just
Suicide's
end the movie
good.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, my personal favorite song to play by Bowie, and it's just like, it's as crisp and bright as driving on a summer day with the windows down. Rebel Rebel off Diamond Dogs.
That music video is fantastic. Where he's just standing on, I think it says either Bowie or Rebel Rebel. He's standing on it, playing, not even really playing the guitar. He's like holding it, and he's
he
dressed.
plays it like in the beginning, and then never
and then he
touches
puts it under
again.
his arm, and he's dressed as Halloween Jack.
Yeah.
Which I think is where my fascination with eye patches came from, because it's like, how do you make Ziggy cooler? You put an eye patch on him.
Works for Nick Fury.
You know? I mean, there you go.
This is your Tarantino impression.
I guess.
The music video for Young Americans.
Oh, it's fantastic. Just him. It's literally him running away from like an American, looking back, going, Oh, I'm afraid. Yeah, I'm afraid of Americans. Yeah, where he's just like looking back, like, oh, he's like in slow mo.
Or I mean, Ashes to Ashes, to just grind this a little more, has like the music video where he's literally, because he always felt that he felt like his personas had become almost like a fucking clown, like a clown costume. So he's literally in a clown costume as he's like, you've got it intercuts between him in an asylum, him strung up like a marionette, like on a stage, and him as a clown, like literally walking off into the sunset. I always just thought that was like so fucking cool. Yeah. Wow. What a man. The man who fell to earth. David Robert
Man
Jones.
who sold the world.
Yeah. Which
Not a Nirvana song.
no, for years he was like so pissed off because kids would come up to him and like, I just think it's really cool that you
Cover
Nirvana, and he's like, fuck off. Like, just
Read the liner notes.
Yeah. Who gets the songwriting credit? But yeah, that I think, well, Man Who Sold the World, MTV Unplugged, I think that's just where that song, more than any other song in that set, is where Kurt Cobain's mind was at the time.
Yeah.
The Man Who Sold the World. But yeah. So thanks, David Robert Jones. Thanks, Alan Rickman. And thanks, Meredith Gran, who isn't dead.
Yeah.
No.
Thank God. And, writing Octopus Pie, we've got at least one more year of it. And, of course, that first volume is out Wednesday, February 17th. Bookstores, comic shops, Comixology. Go whole hog.
Check it out. You will be able to relate to this book.
So
100%.
much. Oh, yeah. Any age. If you were ever 20 years old, if you were ever a teenager.
Yeah. If you ever had a cat vomit on you in the middle of the night.
Not in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But anyway, this has been another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
Ashes to Ashes.
Yeah. Life on Mars. Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
Damn, that beat was dope.
Like, did you know that technically, like, Yoo-hoo is like kosher?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's got the little organic U on it.
Oreos are
Or Oreos are vegan, true.
They are vegan, yes. My favorite snack.
Are you vegan?
Yes, as of like maybe 4 months ago, so I've gotten very used to Oreos being an option.
Right on.